I was gonna make some Apple jokes, but they're selling a Vesa mount for $200, and that is the biggest joke in the world.
Actually, it might be the cheapest thing they announced yesterday.
Yeah,
if you think about it,
which is incredible.
Yep.
So, folks, if you haven't come out from under your rock since the last show, which get your vitamin D, enjoy the daylight. It's a pretty essential part of life. Apple announced a whole bunch of stuff. Some of it's pretty interesting. I think iOS 13 looks really good. Dark mode, a bunch of privacy features, which I don't really care who you are. Kind of that is always a good thing to have more control over your data and all that stuff. iPad OS is officially a thing, and it's basically them admitting that, hey, they're not going to build touchscreen Mac OS. They're just going to build a larger version of iOS that features touch.
That one I don't quite understand, because remember, it used to be called iPhone OS.
Yeah.
And then they changed it to iOS because it's for so many platforms. I mean, why couldn't there just be APIs in iOS that were just for iPad? I don't know, whatever. Although maybe this suggests a diverging path for the future.
Maybe they could call it like One OS, or maybe like
one. Yeah. Notably, they're not going in that direction. So maybe that's the important point.
Yep. If you've wanted any of those Mac and music and Apple, whatever podcast apps on your PC, they're not coming. Good luck. You're sticking with iTunes.
It's funny to watch. It's we see a lot of this in our world, Brad. On the Microsoft front, we dealt with the Windows Phone guys who kind of didn't believe the platform was really dead, or the Cortana fans, or whatever. This happens like all the time, And there's always like this, so there's like the glass half empty, glass half full kind of a thing, right? So, not surprising that Apple is not releasing these apps for Windows, because what form would they take? Like, what would they do? And so the glass half full version of this is like iTunes is there. It works fine. It works sort of, whatever it does. And maybe over time they will release those apps in the Windows Store, because at some point that will be most Windows users, right? And that will make sense, But Apple doesn't make sense, right? And the more realistic viewpoint is that that's never going to happen. And that if Apple was actually concerned at all about cross-platform apps, which they're not, they would just make these web apps. You notice there was no web app anything?
Yeah, there was.
It's all native apps. Like this is like everything you need to know, because you can't make the argument that any of those apps require some kind of native performance or weird features that aren't available in web apps. Like, all of those apps very easily could be done as web apps. They all hit back-end services. It would actually cost Apple less and make more sense for them to do web apps, but they don't, because that only is true in isolation, because Apple's broader strategy is that lock-in thing.
Yeah, I was going to say, there's no benefit for Apple to have people build web apps. That's against what they want, because if they build a web app, that means it's available on Windows and Chrome OS.
Every time you sit there and applaud everything Apple does, oh, they're so beautiful. I don't mean you, Brad. I mean, people who do that.
Yeah, I take that.
You got to remember the real impetus for what they're doing, whether it's the privacy stuff, which is indeed great for users, and so in that case, it's a win-win. But in this case, what this is they're just doing this to this is their whole strategy. They're about to run into antitrust problems because of this stuff, and you can just see it happening full force.
Yep. So the iPad OS stuff are good updates. I think they're going in the right direction. They stop short of doing full proper mouse input, but there is an accessibility option that you can turn on that sort of gives you mouse-like things. It's dumb. This is a very Apple thing.
It's sort of, yep.
So what it is, you can actually hook a mouse up Bluetooth or plug it in. They also enabled the ability to plug in a USB drive into an iPad, and people were applauding like crazy, and that was the one I was like, I need more scotch, because it's
well, okay, but you'll appreciate this. As a longtime Apple user and observer, you know exactly that what I'm about to say is true. Next year, probably next year, but maybe the year after that, but probably next year, they're going to announce formal mouse support for iPad OS, right? This is part of the deal. We don't want it on the iPhone, right? It's iPad OS.
Yep.
And the reason they're going to do it is they're going to act like they're the greatest geniuses in the world. Like, we found that like normal users were just enabling this. And so we said, what the heck? We'll do the right thing for everybody. Guys, Everyone wants this already.
Oh, this hurts.
There,
This hurts.
there are a lot of people who actually could, like the idea of this simpler thing, and it just isn't a laptop because this is one of the things it doesn't have is a trackpad or a mouse support, whatever. And God, just do it, guys. Just freaking do it.
So what happens is when you turn this thing on, it simulates finger input, and it's not even a mouse pointer. It's like an actual circle black dot thing.
That's amazing.
It's like it's so close that it's really them just giving you the finger because they know that's what you want. And
that's what the cursor should be, a little middle finger floating around.
And I'm pretty convinced that they're just building up to actually shipping like a MacBook Air with this OS on it. Like that's what they're building towards, but they are taking the anemic route, and we will get that sometime between 2023 and 2094. Sometime in there, they will ship an A series laptop. But
yeah. I mean, look, we're doing it on the Windows side in a way, right? I mean, over some time period, there will be like a Windows Lite or Lite OS or whatever we're calling this thing this week, system based on ARM, right? I mean that.
Yep.
It's fine. The convergence thing is fine. It makes sense, even. The thing I question, I guess, with Apple is, again, you have to always look at the impetus for this, right? I mean, Apple has this very popular desktop platform. It's like Windows. It's complex and expensive and legacy code and all that kind of junk. And then they have this new thing, and they're really trying to push to make this new thing the thing, And God, they just announced this $6,000 Mac computer, and they're turning it into a workstation, right? I mean, you can see how it's going to kind of unravel, but just the way they tiptoe through it is, I think, it just is aggravating because there are people today who are like, look, I would use the damn thing. Just put mouse support on it.
I will tell you, I am tempted by the iPad Pro. Like specifically for my vacation next week. Like it's a good device for that. But
are you telling me like thin, light, and the ability to run on a charge for 12 or 14 hours or whatever the heck it is, you'd like that? Of course you would.
Yeah.
Who wouldn't? And I didn't experiment with this generation because they really didn't change anything from a user experience perspective. But I've experimented with just using an iPad with like a Bluetooth keyboard. I've experimented with the iPad Pro with the smart keyboard. And unfortunately, what you get into is that, you're that thing where you have to do, and it's awkward to do that and then go back to the keyboard. The solution is right there.
Yeah, I got to figure out what device I'm actually taking on this vacation. If I'm taking the laptop, because it's going to be when I'm taking to that thing we're going into DC. Shift happens, by the way. You can find that link below. Like that? You like that? That was a good transition. Good job, Brad. I am in. Sure. I got to tell you, I am. Like, I get Apple stuff, and like even the watch update looks good. There's a bunch of new faces. They're finally bringing the streaming API, which means approximately sometime around the month of October, I will be canceling my Apple Music subscription and going Spotify on my watch full in because I can't do that currently, and I'm paying for 2 music services because I hate myself.
I'm doing the same thing. I completely understand it.
We've got that going on. My daughter is upstairs singing to the dog currently. I don't know if anybody can hear those sweet
dulcet tones of your daughter.
Yeah, she's just singing to him about we're going to go on a walk. Anyways, that is adorable and appropriate. I don't even know, man. I'm like out of it. But anyways, so we got the watch updates. We got iOS 13. They dropped the new Mac stuff, and then they also dropped this Parmesan Palace back here, which you can just, it heats up. You can melt your cheese right across that nice little cheese grating surface here. and then they had the audacity to announce a $1,000 monitor stand with a $5,000 to $7,000 or $6,000 to $7,000, depending what you want to pay. Display.
They did it again. I guess what was the phrase? Can't innovate my ass, I think was the.
Yeah. And granted, these things are not like anybody listening to this should not be buying this stuff. Like this is not, this is targeted for people who work at Pixar, that type of an audience. I mean, this monitor, for example, isn't even a consumer monitor. It's targeting reference monitors, which granted, they did say do cost a lot of money, which they do. But the audacity to charge $1,000 for a milled piece of aluminum that allows you to turn it 90 degrees and then $200 for a VESA mount.
It's
But again, that market will pay it because these aren't.
Of course.
Paul Thurrott is not going to buy this
I
thing.
made this reference, I think, on Twitter. It's like optioning out a Ferrari. Are we
Yeah.
really going to be surprised that there's an option package that costs $14,000 that I have to get if I'm going to use CarPlay in the vehicle or whatever, or like heated seats or something?
Yeah.
It's always like this outrage, and it's like you're buying something that costs $200,000. Like, what are we're dicking around about here? But yeah, I mean, I will say, looking at that thing, it's a more logical successor to the previous towers that Apple had.
Absolutely. Like, I'm not. Don't get me wrong. I'm not upset about this piece of hardware.
Yeah,
this is fine. I get this. Well, there's some things I'm not in love with. It's literally just the monitor stand and that mount that I hate. It's not even the monitor.
I mean, I sort of look as just someone who's built a lot of PCs. Like, I know you've done the same. I mean, it's hard not to look at this and think, well, why couldn't there be normal Mac towers with that same design with normal innards and maybe that, it's Apple, so they would cost $2,000 or something to start maybe more than that. But no, they're like in the stratosphere. Like these are supercars. Yeah. They're not. There's no Toyota Corolla.
I believe it comes with Xenon processors.
Yeah.
Inside. The one thing that I'm interested in, which Apple came up with their new, I'm assuming it's a PCIe derivative or architecture for their graphics card solutions, which is interesting on one aspect because, hey, if they're getting more bandwidth or whatever, you should have better performance and all that good stuff. But on the same side, that means you can't just go out to the store and buy a couple 2080 Ti's and swap them in there. Now, it does have potentially the slots to do that, but to get the raw performance that Apple is, pitching here for that stuff, you got to buy their custom stuff, which is, again, not for the consumer, which is going to be expensive. But I will tell you, I bet, Mr. Thurrott, that next year at Computex, all the case manufacturers of the world are going to have a derivative of this design.
Yes. In fact, there'll be different cheese grater shapes. Yeah, absolutely true. Yep.
Yeah, and you can get it on wheels if that's your thing, which...
Because that thing has to be mobile.
Yeah. Nothing says I want to be productive like rolling your $40,000 computer across the office floor.
Okay. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I've spent a lot of time reading about cars in my life, for example.
I love cars.
Right. So a lot of people are car enthusiasts, whatever. It's something I keep up on, even though I've only bought a new car once in my entire life, and it was a long time ago, and I don't really buy cars that much, but I keep up on it, and there's some guys and some publications I really like in this space. But the one downside I will say is they're all really sucked in by the supercars. So you see a kind of a crazy percentage of car reviews are for these cars that no one can buy.
Yeah.
Yeah. And and that's true of even the best reviewers, and it's aggravating, and this is that for the PC industry. It's technically not. It's not a PC. It's not really a Mac, right? It's a different thing. You're not going to run that thing. You buy that thing so you can run like the new Apple TV app.
Right.
It's something else. I mean, I know it runs the same apps or whatever, but it's like you said, it's for Pixar. It's for those kind of high those high end content creator types. It's a different thing.
It is. And I will absolutely go in there and spec one out and just kind of dream, much like I do Ferraris and Bentleys and Porsches, 911 Turbo S, if you ever want to give me something for Father's Day. Anybody out there?
Yeah, I could see going in a Porsche direction. I would never buy a Ferrari or a Lamborghini. I don't understand. That's not my thing. But some of the German stuff I could definitely see. High-end Mercedes, the Gullwing Mercedes or whatever, like that I kind of get, and this thing I'm like, I get that it's for someone. I don't aspire to that. Like, I don't want one. I don't know.
So if there's anybody out there who was going to ship us a Mac Pro because you love us that much, make sure don't send it to Paul. He doesn't want one. I will take it on the other hand.
Yeah, I literally have no use for it.
I would. Please send it to me. Anyways, it was a very long keynote yesterday, over 2.5 hours, something like that. Microsoft showed off Minecraft Earth, which I'm guessing was the Galapagos. That there was a code name floating around for that event for Microsoft. That's what that was. There was what else did they show?
Remember we were speculating, like, what could it be? And
we were thinking, like VS Code on the iPad or something like that would make a lot of sense. So
I was positive they were heading in that direction. There was a point there, I was like, man, they're going to do it, And then I was like, oh, right, they're Apple.
yeah.
We never do that. I thought the Minecraft thing was great. I thought, and you should watch it again if you didn't see this. But when that demo ended, if you look at the people that were on stage from Mojang, Microsoft, or whatever, they had the sheerest look of bliss on their face I've ever seen. Like those two people were so happy. Yeah, probably partially because the demo went off so well or whatever. But I honestly think, like, they understand that they've created something amazing.
Yeah, like,
you know what I mean?
They've got it. Yeah,
yeah. I think they have too. I think it's neat.
This app, I know for a fact, has been. It was delayed multiple times. It was supposed to ship a while ago, but it wasn't quite there yet. And so this isn't something they said, oh, in October. It's like, we should do this. Now, this has been in development for quite a while, and it's taken up a lot of resources. So I fully expect it to be pretty dang good once it ships.
I guess it was almost 4.5 years ago when they first showed off HoloLens. The coolest demo we had was when we went in that room, and they had Minecraft on the table. They had a Minecraft hole in the wall, and it looked like a cave inside the wall, and bats flew out of it. I mean, that was the beginning of this, and I thought it was. I just thought it was incredible.
Which reminds me of a very random story and a stupid joke I told. So what Paul just described is you walked into this room, then they shut the door behind you. And I remember muttering, was it Ben Reed or somebody? I was like, oh, so where's the guy with the lead pipe? Like,
yeah, I always make that joke. The door closes behind you, and it's like, and then the gas hisses.
Yes. This is how they take us
They finally figured out a solution for the Thurrott problem.
Yep. And then quietly yesterday, this is probably on the antitrust back of everything, Apple reinstated some of those parental control applications. Surprise, surprise.
On the day that the U.S. House of Representatives alerted Apple that they were investigating them for business abuses.
Yep.
And they're like, oh, remember that thing we did that was terrible and there was no reason for it? Yeah, we're not doing that anymore.
My bad. Yeah.
Yep.
So I think it was a good WWDC. I mean, there was a lot
I need to go back and watch it again.
Yeah.
I was very distracted for the first hour or so because I had that work thing yesterday. And then I had to get on a bus, and I watched the last hour queasily on a moving bus, trying to tweet to it and stuff.
You have a rich history of never being around during Apple events on planes, trains.
I know
buses.
it's terrible. I don't intend it. I'm gonna go through it again this afternoon. I will say this. I agree with you. I overall, from what I can tell, it was a solid set of announcements. I think good platform advances in every case. You can be cynical about stuff. You're like, oh, they didn't have dark mode already. Yeah, okay, whatever. Like there are things about iOS I think we can all agree are terrible, like the inability to put icons wherever you want them, et cetera, et cetera. And we're going to make fun of it whenever they do add that feature. And it's easy to do and whatever. But you know what? I think the dark mode to me looks great. I think iOS is going to be beautiful in dark mode, just like Mac is. The watch stuff looked great. The Apple TV stuff was, minor, but it looked good. The gaming stuff is very interesting, right? Xbox and PlayStation controllers across iOS.
That's a big deal.
tvOS. I think so. I mean, overall, I thought it was great. The high-end Mac stuff, like whatever. And then, like right at the end, by the way, all of a sudden, for the first time, and this thing, like you said, 2.5 hours went by. Yeah. They had a developer announcement.
Yeah.
And this is an esoteric, difficult topic, because it's developer oriented. But the Mac, iOS, Apple, whatever style of development comes from the 1990s, and it was an early stab at object-oriented programming using a language called Objective-C, and using it, which was a much less popular take on a C OOP language, the C++ being the popular one, and then a really insane user experience builder software that today is all part now. It used to be called Interface Builder, but now it's all part of Xcode, the Apple stuff. This stuff has been terrible since it was invented. It was always terrible. It's convoluted. It's hard to use. It doesn't make any sense. It is horrible.
Yeah. And
they added this new, simpler language, Swift, to replace Objective-C or to work alongside Objective-C 5 years ago, whatever. It's definitely an improved language. Objective-C has strange syntax, whatever. But now, 2019, they're actually going to get rid of that interface builder stuff. Now you have to use Swift, right? But you get this thing that looks a lot and works a lot like Visual Basic, which, by the way, dates back to 1990. It's what we used to call a RAD tool, a rapid application development tool. Delphi was like that. Borland Delphi was like that. Visual Basic was like that all the way through. Microsoft has XAML designers built into Visual Studio that work like this. The idea is you have a toolbox of controls. You place them on a form, you move them around, and you can double click on it, and you get like an event loop you can write to or whatever. Seriously, it's 30 years later. Like, how did they not have that yet? It's interesting. There, and by the way, if you caught it, there's a thing where they make a change and it just works in the application that's running. That's what Flutter does. Now, Flutter's only been around for a couple of years, so that's a new thing. But that kind of hot reload functionality is a fairly new thing. So anyway, here we are, 2019. They're actually kind of catching up from a software development perspective as well. That was actually a big announcement.
Yeah.
Again, Apple, belated, should have happened before, but they're doing it.
They are. They are. It'll be, we'll see. I mean, I would expect, just like every other year, all the software should be shipping sometime roughly September.
Yeah.
On new devices. There'll be public betas. I think they said July. That sound about right. At least for iOS.
If you're in the developer program, you can get them now. Now you got to pay to be in that. I think it's $99 a year still.
And I think you have to have a Mac too to be able to get currently.
Is that true? I think.
I thought that you had to have a Mac to load it, but I might be wrong on that.
Usually, if your device is enrolled, you just get it over the air. But I stopped paying for it, so I actually don't. I haven't seen what it looks like today.
Yeah, Mahedi has done a bunch of good posts if you want to go see more screenshots of all that good stuff. And then also seemingly out of nowhere, Qualcomm announced the 7CX for PCs because that's what we were all asking for.
To be clear, they didn't announce it. That's the weird bit. They Don McGuire, who we know, mentioned it on a podcast, and he said that in addition to the 8CX, which is that one that functions like a Core i5 from a performance perspective, there's a lower end chip which is currently called the 7CX. It might be called something else when it ships, but it's going to be aimed at $300 to $800 computers. So they're also looking at the mid part of the market, or maybe the low end of the market. No idea how that performs. You know, he didn't compare it to like an i3 or a Celeron or an Atom or whatever, or an M3, whatever. I don't know. So we don't really know, but that makes sense. I mean, you know, they have they used to have like one basic chipset, and now they have a bunch, and they all target different things. You know, IoT, wearables, PCs, right? You know, so they have different kinds of chips. So that's cool. I mean, that's smart. I don't think we're going to see it this year, but it's a good idea.
Yeah. So you can be on the lookout for that. Maybe one day we'll actually get our hands on the 8CX.
I think it was Rich Woods who told me this. Those are coming. The first PCs based on that are coming out this fall. So we're actually going to see those at IFA. Yeah, so it won't be that long. Yeah.
But I mean, it'll be roughly, well, it'll be 9 months after the chip was announced. Is that about?
Yeah, but that's the way it goes, right? Well, actually, it's not the way it goes at mobile. So in mobile, they announce in December and release in February, March. In the PC chipsets, they've announced in December and released in the fall. So yeah, it's been taking longer.
Yeah. So we got all that going on. You are heading to Amsterdam tonight.
Right. So this is actually probably it for us for the week, because you are heading to Florida on Wednesday. No.
Outer Banks.
Outer Banks. I'm sorry. And that's North Carolina or South Carolina?
North Carolina. We're actually heading to right near Kitty Hawk, which is, you're familiar with the Wright brothers.
And you're going tomorrow. Is that right?
We are leaving tomorrow around lunchtime. We're going to drive for a while and then get to the beach.
Yeah. So I don't think there's any way we can get together tomorrow because of the timing. And then, of course, you'll just be on vacation. So actually, the next time we'll be doing one of these will be when? At like late next week?
Yeah, probably at the earliest. Shift happens would be my guess.
Okay. So I'll see you a week from Wednesday or Tuesday.
Wow, that's going to be a nice...
Something like that.
Yep, Tuesday evening. I think we're doing a meetup Tuesday evening in Washington, D.C. We'll have to get a post up about that one.
Well, I expect you to have your version of a tan by then.
Spoiler alert, it's going to look a lot like I am now, but slightly.
Right. I'm going to go to the Amsterdam and come home with an awesome tan somehow, even though I'll be inside the whole time.
I suspect I'll look very similar because, you know, the SPFs will be they'll be spraying.
Deployed.
Yes, deployed. I think I was trying to find the right word. I think deployed is the appropriate way. I bought a book to read. So
Nice. Well, which one did you get? I saw you were asking.
It's called Creative Selection. It's basically how they built the iPhone during the Steve Jobs era. So that should be arriving today. We'll see if it's good. And yeah. Well, you got anything else for today, Mr. Thurrott?
No, I'm going to be doing What the Tech early today. Andrew's also going to Europe separately. And then I'm just going to be, getting excited about my drive to JFK because that's always great.
How many hours is that one?
2.5. Yeah.
Well, nice.
It's okay because after that I'll be on a plane for 7 hours after spending several hours in an airport. So it's gonna be, it's gonna be good.
Yeah. See, for me, I would like the 2.5 hour drive, not the 7 hours on a plane. But whatever. We each choose our own adventures in life. And you chose poorly.
That's for sure.
All right, everybody else, that wraps it up for today. Like we've just discussed for the past 5 minutes for the whatever time, umpteenth time. We will not be back for the next couple days. We are both traveling in different directions, thankfully, and we will catch you back here next week at Shift Happens. Have yourselves a wonderful week.